Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our session. Today, we're kicking off our CDMP preparation series at a high level. And I want to start by giving you a little background on Goventra, our company. Goventra is a data and AI governance enablement firm focused on building organizational literacy. We run multiple learning series, and one of them is our subject matter expertise series. This episode is one of the very first on this track, designed specifically for those who want to become CDMP certified and need a clear, practical guidance. Today's session is about 30 minutes. It's foundational, it's straightforward, and is meant to give you clarity that you need before you dive deeper. If you are new to the data landscape, I definitely encourage you to subscribe to our channel and check out our fundamental data trainings we have already published. They'll give you some strong baseline. And a little about me. My name is Eddie Hashemi. I'm a Senior Director of Data and AI Governance Enablement here at Goventra. I've spent over 15 years in data management and data governance across banking, managed healthcare, and financial services. My specialties are data stewardship and metadata, the areas where clarity and structure matters the most. And yes, I'm a fresh CDMP graduate. Even though I've been a practitioner for many years, I recently went through the exam myself. So everything I'm sharing with you today is straight from the trenches. My goal is to make sure your journey is easier, clearer, and a lot less stressful than mine was. And with that said, it will be a pleasure to walk you through today's session, and I truly hope that you find it beneficial. So if some of you just stumbled in here, welcome. But my guess is that you've been searching for CDMP content and information about certification process. Either way, you're in the right place. Let me give you a quick overview of what CDMP actually is. CDMP stands for Certified Data Management Professional. It's globally recognized certification offered by DAMA International, one of the leading professional associations in the data management space. The exam validates your understanding of data management concepts, the DMBOK framework, and your ability to think like a data practitioner. And if you're wondering who DAMA is International is a global vendor-neutral organization dedicated to advancing data management practices. They're the ones who publish the DMBOK, which we'll talk about that later in the session. The certification itself has 3 tiers based on your score: associate, practitioner, and master. The exam has about 100 questions, 90 minutes, multiple choice, usually 4 to 5 options per question, and is based entirely on the DMBOK 2.0 knowledge areas. In terms of cost, it could typically run between $300 to $350. My recent experience was around $311 as a non-member. And we've included some helpful links in this page. Feel free to pause and review them if you want more details before moving on. All right. With that foundation in place, let's continue. If you're wondering if CDMP is a good fit for you, then honestly, it's for anyone who works with data in any capacity. If you interact with data teams, if you're a PM leading data or AI transformation projects, if you're a business analyst, a data steward, an owner, a custodian, if you're already working in a governance environment or trying to break into one, if you're a data architect or an engineer building data solutions, and even if you're a leader driving major data governance initiatives, this certification fits you. I personally believe the CDMP is more of a learning experience than the certification. Even with many years that I had in the field, the exam opened up areas I hadn't been exposed to in my day-to-day work. It gives you a broader landscape of data universe. Now, who is this not ideal for? It's not designed for people who are looking for a deep technical hands-on technology certification, and it's not for someone who wants to specialize in one domain. CDMP is really high level, but it can go into details. It covers the entire data ecosystem. The real question you need to ask yourself is, do I make decisions, build processes, or deliver work that depends on data being correct, trusted, and well managed? If your answer is yes, then you're in the right place, and the CDMP is absolutely the right certification for you. I want to take a moment to give you a real disclaimer here. This page isn't about saying that we're doing something wrong or making any false promises. It's actually the opposite. I want to make sure that you know that we're not one of those organizations or videos out there chasing clicks, giving you gimmicks, or offering unrealistic guarantees. There are no magic formulas here. This is not a guaranteed past training. This is not a shortcut or a hack. And watching one video will not get you certified. That simply doesn't exist. What this is a foundational guide to help you understand what the CDMP exam really is. How is it structured? How you can build realistic strategy to pass it. We're going to walk through the support system available, the study paths that actually works, and the roadmaps that make sense. But I have to emphasize this. The CDMP requires real effort, real discipline, and some pre-existing familiarity with data concepts. This training won't replace that. What it will do is give you the structure, clarity, and direction you need so you can approach the exam with confidence and solid plan. Real quick about the exam itself. As I mentioned earlier, it's 100 questions, 90 minutes, and it's a mix of technical, tactical, and strategic questions. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But what makes this exam different from others, I've taken this test and it's very scenario-based. So you're not just recalling definitions, you're applying concepts. The exam covers terminologies, models, workflows, activities, and deliverables. We have 5 slides in this session that walk you through those key areas that you need to understand and get comfortable with. It does include some practical use cases, but the majority of the exam is scenario-driven and requires real reasoning. There's always time pressure. You technically have about 1.5 minutes per question, and you might assume that easier ones will give you extra time, but trust me, the clock creeps up really fast. You have to make quick, confident decisions. There's heavy focus on real-world scenarios and problem solving, and unlike exams like PMP, there's no in-person testing centers. You take the exam at home on your own computer, and you'll need to complete the required setup through the third-party proctor, but you need to initiate everything through the CDMP website. You absolutely need familiarity with the data concept before you walk into this exam. You need to think like a practitioner, not a memorizer. Preparation matters tremendously. And this is not a casual exam. It requires focus, discipline, and solid understanding of how data actually works in a real environment. So let's get even a little bit deeper into this and understand what it is, right? There are a few key realities you should know up front. This isn't like a PMP or Scrum Master test. It's not as widely known, and the ecosystem around it is much smaller. Training material is limited. This is very specialized, and globally, there are fewer than 100,000 people certified across all tiers. So you're dealing with a niche, but very meaningful certification. At Goventra, we're all about data literacy and helping organizations build real understanding around their data. We knew many teams had people interested in getting CDMP certified, and we went through the process ourselves. We saw there was a big gap. Most of the books, example, and practice questions we used showed up very little in the actual exam. In our experience, less than 5% of what we actually practice overlapped in the actual test questions. Even AI-generated practice tests helped with familiarity, but didn't really match the scenario style or the way questions were framed. So what does the exam actually test? Yes, it checks your terminology, but it goes beyond that. It looks at your understanding of process, inputs and outputs and activities. More importantly, it wants to see if you can solve real problems for your organization or your clients. The questions are built around real-world scenarios and practical use cases. You'll often be given multiple valid-sounding answers, and your job is to pick the best solution for that specific situation. That's where the thinking like a data practitioner comes in. Flashcards and memorizations can help, but only if they're tied to some understanding. You need to connect the dots, not just recall the words. You really need to learn the Embark language, how it describes domains, roles, processes, and practices. And I want to call out something important here. Sometimes the right answer on the exam may not match what you really do in your real job. If you're a hands-on practitioner, your real-life solution might be perfectly valid, but the exam is testing alignment with the DMBOK view of the world. So you have to balance your experience with the framework. The key is reasoning, constantly mapping concept to real examples within your work, but also being willing to answer from the perspectives of the DMBOK and the CDMP exam, not just your current organization. Let's talk about the cost of the exam, what you realistically need to invest to prepare for it. The exam itself is about $311 last time I took it. So yes, there's a little bit of expense involved, but you don't need to overspend. There are really only two books I strongly recommend. The first one you must have is the DMBOK 2.0 Revised Edition. Depending on the format, it runs usually between $80 and $100. This is the core reference for the exam. The second book that I recommend is the CDMP Exam Guide by Reed Schmidt. I personally use this one, even though none of the questions in the book showed up in the actual exam, not a single one. It helped me tremendously in getting into the right mindset, especially scenario-based reasoning. It has 500 questions, practice questions, and I've seen it priced between, if I'm actually free on Kindle, to around $20 on Amazon. Beyond that, you need to do your own research, build quick reference printouts, create your own binder, capture the technologies, models, and focus areas that we'll talk about in the next few slides. This is where your preparation becomes personal. I also recommend sticking to high-quality online instructions. We consider ourselves part of that group. Try to avoid gimmicky 10-minute past the CDMP videos. This exam requires real understanding, not shortcuts. Now, the exam is open book, but don't let that fool you. You're allowed one reference document, either a physical book or a single digital file. But with only a minute and a half per question, you won't have time to hunt for answers unless you prepped the materials extremely well. My personal setup was a binder full of printouts with tabs, and even then, it only helped me with maybe 3 to 4 questions out of the 100. That should tell you how tight the timing is. Let's talk about the preparation timelines. If you're an experienced architect, practitioner, or someone who works with data every day, you can realistically prepare for this in 30 days with 10 to 15 hours per week. If you have moderate experience, I can recommend 60 days at the same weekly pace. And if you're brand new to data, give yourself at least 120 days. Spend the first month learning the fundamentals, and we recommend starting the videos on our channel, then use remaining 3 months to focus on CDMP specific preparation. The key is consistency, structure, and understanding, not memorization. Let's talk about the next 2 slides, which focus on strategy. These are very high level, but they're critical because they shape how you approach the exam. First, you need to understand the exam style. This isn't a casual test. You have to take it seriously. Prep your environment, make sure your space is clean, quiet, and meets the proctoring requirements. There are videos online that show you how to set up your room, things like adjusting your camera, showing your background, proving there's nothing around you that could raise questions. It's all part of the process. Next, you need to read and practice consistently. And when you practice, think of real-world scenarios. Stop memorizing for the sake of memorizing. Focus on mastering inputs, outputs, and deliverables in each process. Understand the full framework, and we'll walk through some of those later in the session. Another big point is study in segments. Don't jump around randomly. Pick a domain, master it. Don't move to the next. That structure will help you build real understanding instead of scattered knowledge. The strategy isn't about shortcuts, It's about preparing the right way so you can walk into the exam with confidence and be ready. You need to deeply understand the fundamentals. Use the books for visuals, especially the DMBOK. Know the terminology, know its purposes, and understand how each concept fits in the bigger picture. Always connect the tools and techniques to the outcome. If you're learning a new term, make sure you understand where it comes from, what comes after it, and what that tool actually contributes to in the process. Focus on speed and reasoning. When you learn a new concept, immediately think through the scenario where it applies. Build those mental models. Ask yourself, where would I use this? What problem does it solve? What decision does it support? You can also use AI tools to explore terms more deeply. For example, to see mind map of related activities, inputs, outputs, and techniques. That helps you identify the common denominators and start grouping concepts together. The goal is not memorization. The goal is to build connected understanding so that when the exam gives you the scenario, you can reason your way for the best answer. So this is one of the most important pieces of information you can have about the CDMP exam. Damo is literally telling us how they break down the exam segments, where the questions are coming from, and this becomes incredibly helpful later in your own experience. We're bringing to you up front so you can anchor your study strategy before we can get into deeper focus areas. On the next slide, when we talk about what you need to study, you'll see how those areas map directly to the percentages in this breakdown. You'll notice things like data warehousing and business intelligence at 10%, master and data reference at 10%, and the big strategic domains, modeling and design, data quality, metadata, and governance, all sitting at 11%. That tells you something important. The exam is designed for people who understand data at a strategic and modeling level. They're not just testing definitions, they're testing whether you can think like a data practitioner. So, in the next slides, we're going to walk through the breakdown of what will actually help you when you're putting together your study plan. This is where the strategy starts to come together. So now we're shifting into the focus areas. What you need to learn, what you need to be aware of, and what you should be using for your printouts and reference materials. Any of the areas in the next 5 pages will show up on your exam. You'll also notice that there's illustration on the side. These illustrations really matter. You need to be able to picture them, understand them, and almost memorize them visually. The first major area we want to focus on are the core domains. These are the foundation of the CDMP exam, and everything else is built underneath them. As we go through these slides, feel free to pause and review them before you move on to the next page for additional note-taking. As you can see, this next focus area is one of the major area 10% domains in the exam, and it covers both modeling and architecture. We strongly recommend spending real time here, not just skimming it, because this is where a lot of exam strategic thinking comes from. Understanding this area helps you connect the dots across the entire data ecosystem. When you know how architecture supports modeling and how modeling drives governance, quality, and integration, the scenario questions start to make a lot more sense. So treat this domain as a core pillar in your study plan. Again, on the slide, these are high-level points you need to focus on. The subsegments listed are exact areas you should be familiar with, the terminology, the process, and the key activities. And on the right side, you'll see the illustrations that go with them. Use those visuals, reference them. They're designed to help you understand and visually get aligned with the concepts. Just like the other slides, this one combines several key activities you need to pay attention to. I recommend pausing the video here again, taking a screenshot, take notes. This slide covers operating models and privacy, and you'll notice there's a lot of potential exam questions tied back to these concepts. They show up repeatedly throughout the literature that you'll be studying. They're considered high focus area. So make sure you spend time understanding how these pieces fit together. The terminology, the process, and the way models communicate across the MBOK. This will help you recognize patterns and answer scenarios, questions with confidence. The last segment in the focus area contains some of the most technical questions you'll encounter in the entire CDMP exam. This is where exam dives into deeper conversation, more advanced terminologies, and the mechanics of how data actually moves and behaves in an enterprise environment. For many people who are not hands-on, non-technical contributors, this is often the most challenging part. So take your time with it. Be very intentional about understanding the concept, how they relate to one another, how they form the broader ecosystem we call the data governance and data management. This is not an area where your surface level memorization will help. You need to understand how issues, pieces together, interact, and support the overall data lifecycle. That understanding will help you carry on throughout the scenario questions in the domain. So let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts here that we recommend. Cover all the areas, especially the 5 master reference pages that we provided: domains, models, life cycles, governance, quality, MDM, integration, business intelligence. Know that what each concept means, what it fits, and what it triggers it. Approach every term like a consultant solving a data problem. Create patterns, association, visual cues that help you recall quickly. Ask yourself, what would they try to confuse me with here? They can build traps into their questions. Link terminology, purpose, domain, real-world use cases. Master it before you move on to new concepts, always. Grids, tables, and diagrams, not long paragraphs, because they could be very confusing. I do recommend the binder with tabs and searchable digital doc. And use the same binder, the same Word doc, and same layout to practice the majority of your real-life testing. Don't memorize for the sake of memorizing. The exam tests reasoning, not recall. The exam is scenario-driven, not definition-driven. Avoid fragmented learning. Finish one area fully, like mentioned before. Break content into grids and segments and visuals. It's about how you apply the knowledge. Your binder, your notes must be fast to navigate, so don't underestimate the preparation of the materials and to structure them. If you don't structure them properly, you're going to run into search issues. Do not skip the fundamentals. Weak foundations slow you down in scenario questions. So on the day of the exam, remember, you're going to be nervous. That's normal. Everyone feels it. The key is getting yourself mentally ready before you even sit down. Make sure you schedule your exam on a day that actually works for you. No work pressure, no family distraction, nothing pulling your attention away. And make sure you're in an environment that meets all exam requirements, so you don't get surprised at the last minute. Have everything prepped ahead of time. Your binder, your notes, your digital setup, whatever you're using. Give yourself at least 30 minutes before the scheduled start time to settle in. And if it's a 90-minute test, which we know it is, give yourself at least 4 to 5 hours window. Glance through your notes one last time, take a deep breath, and start steady. If the questions are taking too long, skip it. You can always come back. Don't let one question drain your time or your confidence. And don't get discouraged if you hit a streak of tough questions. That happens. The exam eventually balances it out, and it will get you ones that you're more comfortable with. Time will creep up on you, so keep an eye on the clock. And at the very end, if you still have time for unanswered questions, choose the best possible answer you can. Don't leave anything blank. When you finish, your result will show up immediately with your percentages. So stay calm, stay focused, and trust your preparation. After you finish the exam and see your score, remember, a demo will reach out to you, but it can take up to a week. Don't get discouraged if you don't hear anything right away. There's a video verification process and additional certification review they complete before contacting you. You already know the score the moment you finish, but the official confirmation comes after the verification step. If you didn't pass or you didn't hit the level you were aiming, don't worry. You always have the option to retake the exam at a discounted rate. And if you scored above 80%, kudos for you. That puts you in the master class range, and you should seriously consider pursuing additional exams to further validate your background. We hope this entire overview became a solid foundation for your CDMP exam journey. We wish you best of the luck. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Our contact information is on the next page. Best of luck in your next steps as you continue building your knowledge and expertise in data, data management, and data governance. Thank you for sitting through our presentation. We hope you found this helpful and genuinely beneficial. Feel free to rewatch the video, pause wherever you need to take notes, and revisit any sections to support your study journey. We really appreciate that you could subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so you can stay updated. Please visit our channel, Goventra Academy, and we're constantly adding new data governance related videos and trainings. If you're new to the data or just starting to explore this, make sure you check out our earlier videos. They'll help you build fundamentals before diving deeper into data and AI governance. If you're already in the space, just need realignment or structure, those resources will also help you. Our contact information is below. Feel free to reach out with any questions or comments. As mentioned earlier, this isn't a one and done training. It's not meant to replace your full study plan, but we hope it gave you the foundation, structure, and confidence you need, whether you're preparing to take the exam or simply deciding if the CDMP is the right certification for you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.